I want to talk about why Against the Storm is perhaps the greatest city builder of all time. But before I do that, we need to establish something. The best part of any city builder is usually that first hour. Now, that's what makes the pitch for Against the Storm so simple. It's a city building roguelike. Stop right there, you city builder sickos. I get it. The idea that you'd only build a city for a little while and then abandon it on purpose is simply heretical. Failure is a motivating factor in this genre, but in a don't ever let this happen kind of way. Keeping all your little people or beavers or frozen child laborers happy and healthy is usually the main goal, and failing to do so is game over. It doesn't feel good, but Against the Storm feels very good. The language it speaks will be immediately familiar to any city builder fan. Plopping down buildings on a grid, drawing roads, managing jobs, and harvesting resources from the environment. And that's the first sign that developer Eremite Games really knows what it's doing. The UI feels immediately intuitive. A frequent task, like swapping your citizens' job placements to maximize their skill specializations, is nearly frictionless. I can do it quicker than I said that sentence. When you click on a resource node, the pop-up menu shows you if you already have the necessary harvesting cart, and if not, lets you build it with one click. Speaking of carts, you won't have any regrets about where you build your harvesting buildings, since they're all wagons that can be moved for free. And then some mechanics lock into one another so tightly they're almost self-explanatory. For example, your towns start with a central hearth, so you gotta keep that fire burning by chopping down wood. Chopping down wood is also how you explore the map and extend your city's footprint as you cut deeper and deeper into the surrounding forest. And cutting deeper into the forest opens up clearings called glades that are kinda like woodland gashapons full of random quests and resources. Yes, I pulled mushrooms! This might have bonus insects in it! So to recap, you need wood for heat, and you need to cut down trees to make more room for your city, and that's how you explore to find more resources. But I know I said that this is a roguelike, so you're probably wondering when you gotta leave this lovely settlement behind, and I promise, it's not that scary. In fact, it also feels pretty good. Your real job in Against the Storm is to gain enough reputation points before your queen grows too impatient. Reputation and patience are always visible down here, represented by this blue and red bar. There are 3 ways you can gain reputation. 1. By completing the queen's orders you receive periodically. 2. By completing quests you find in glades. And 3. By making your citizens extremely happy. For example, you'll just slowly gain reputation every second if you've got your harpies blissed out of their minds on tea and biscuits. The queen's impatience meter also grows gradually, but she's never not impatient. You can satisfy her, however, by showing your progress, because every time you hit one of these marks on the reputation bar, her impatience drops by a full point. It's another system that just elegantly snaps into place in your mind. As you gain more reputation, you'll also unlock more buildings. This happens in a very roguelike way, where you get to choose from a random selection of buildings, like cards in hand. These are the buildings you'll use to cook better food to satisfy your citizens, and craft the materials you'll need for the more complicated supply chains. This system rewards understanding those chains forwards and backwards because you don't know the order in which you'll get those buildings. For example, you might get a cellar or distillery that can make wine before you get a plantation that can grow berries. Or maybe you get a farm in your opening hand, but then you've got to hold out for a brewery that can turn your wheat into ale, not to mention a building that can craft containers to put it in. It's a little like playing poker, where you get the satisfaction of gambling that a cooperage or tavern will come up that actually lets you barrel and consume that ale. But if you don't get your full house, you can still try for a 2-pair. Each building can make multiple recipes, so you can adapt on the fly. Maybe your lizards don't get the jerky they want, but instead you can satisfy their religious needs by making incense. It turns the puzzle of supply chains into a push-your-luck game of risk, reward, and adaptability. Your strategy will be different for every city depending on what cards you draw, which critters live there, and what kind of resources you discover. There are tons of opportunities to differentiate your runs, and critically, you always get choices. Which way you'll solve a problem, which orders from the queen you'll take on, which cornerstone buffs you'll get, and which group of citizens will join your town. Of course, as a city builder fan, I know it feels weird to just abandon your city. When your reputation meter finally fills up, you get the option to continue just for funsies, but you'll quickly learn why it's worth moving on. Upgrades. All those settlements you're building serve a greater purpose: to gather resources that ultimately go to one protected place in the kingdom, the Smoldering City. Here, you can unlock more cards for your deck of buildings or level up your starting resources so you hit the ground running faster and faster. Before starting your next settlement, you also get to choose its location on a world map, with variables including forest habitats, unique power-ups, and extra challenges that reward you with special bonus resources in the metagame. It's yet another chance to push your luck for a bigger payoff later. Eventually, you'll build out far enough from the Smoldering City to reach one of these season-ending sealing missions. This time, you won't win just by filling out your reputation bar. Instead, you'll need to explore the forest to find the broken seal and repair it by completing a series of special quests. Whether you complete or fail this mission, the season comes to a close and all the settlements you've built are wiped out by the storm. Don't worry, you still keep your upgrades. But I'm willing to admit that there are some things you miss out on by not really having a late game in Against the Storm. The further you get from the Smoldering City, the harder things get. Your new buildings and upgrades are matched by tricky new challenges like Blight Rot, and your cities will necessarily stretch across more and more of the map. But it's just not the same late game as a city builder like Timberborn, where you get the satisfaction of growing a massive beaver metropolis supported by an intricate system of locks and dams built over hundreds of hours of play. And Against the Storm, you'll rarely spend more than a couple of hours on any one settlement, so you don't ever get the same sort of gratification of managing a truly bustling village. But this game taught me that the best part of any city builder is often the opening hour you play. This is when you lay down the first roads that will shape how your city looks, when you find the resources that will define its character, and when you get intimately familiar with the needs of your citizens. Against the Storm is all about that delicious sense of possibility. You spend just enough time with your settlement to see all your plans come to fruition before you move on to the next. It also manages to feel tense in a genre often considered monotonous, thanks to the swingy nature of that reputation and impatience system. Oh, which reminds me, the queen is getting impatient, and I feel a storm brewing, so if you'll excuse me, I left tea steeping and there's biscuits on the table.